In today's world, being a skilled listener is incredibly powerful. I believe it may be the most important skill we can develop as human beings if we want better relationships with others. And this is top of mind for me because over the last couple weeks, I have spent time with some friends who are really struggling personally with a variety of different things. Some personal, some with work, some sort of broader. And I'll be honest that it was challenging to be with them because my nature is to want to problem solve, to kind of jump in and fix things, to, make things better. And these friends are wrestling with things that really I can't fix. I can't change, even if they wanted me to, which I'm not sure they did. And what I was reminded through these conversations is that the most valuable thing I could give them was not to fix the thing, but to create space for them to talk about it, to think about it, to feel about it, to bear witness to their struggle, to be a safe place for them. What they needed probably more than anything was to feel seen and heard, and I could offer that to them. And, while the conversations that we had didn't change anything about the circumstances that they were facing, right? When they left that conversation, they still had the same challenges. The world still felt just as daunting. I think it did change them, or at least made an impact. I mean, they said in different ways at the end of the conversation that it helped them feel grounded. It helped them feel supported. It made them feel like someone cared, right? And that went a long ways. And I think pretty often that's what we really want out of our conversations and relationships with other people is we just want to feel supported, to know someone cares. And this is what makes listening perhaps one of the most powerful skills that you can develop is because it equips you to do that for other people. And I think when we bring this into the context of work as a leader, we oftentimes think mistakenly that our job is to as quickly and efficiently solve every problem that an employee brings to us. And that's a mistake. Because our primary job, if you are trying to build the kind of work experience that elevates people's performance and contributions, our primary job as a leader is to ensure that our people feel supported and cared for, right? That's the foundation on which they can go forth into their work and feel empowered to solve problems and to feel confident to kind of take the risks that elevate their performance. And to build that foundation starts with listening. And listening is a skill. And like any skill, it requires intention and practice. And so today, what I wanted to share with you in this episode is one of the active listening practices that I teach. And it's one that is particularly, I think, important or resonant for me because it's something that I have to work very actively on even to this day. It's sort of that I teach to remind myself sometimes when it comes to listening. And this practice is called spacious listening. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's about leaving more space in a conversation. And what space is in a conversation is, you guessed it, silence. And most of us struggle with silence, which is what makes this particularly difficult at times, but it's also what makes this practice so powerful. Because I'd like to invite you to think about the last time you were in a conversation with someone and for whatever reason, there ended up being some silence. You both stopped talking and allowed maybe you didn't allow silence, but silence sort of crept in. There was just space that sat there. Do you remember how you felt in that moment? You probably felt like you needed to fill that silence, to say something. That's what most of us are compelled to do. And that's what makes silence and spacious listening so powerful, is because when we're in a conversation that matters with people, sometimes it takes a while for us to find our way to the stuff that really needs to be said. If you're a manager and you're trying to have a meaningful conversation with your people, it might take them a minute to feel brave enough to say the thing that they really need to say. Or maybe, some of us, I'm in this camp, maybe they aren't really sure what they want to say or what needs to be said yet. And so they're kind of finding their way through it. Some of us, myself included, I think out loud. And so as I'm talking, sometimes my thoughts are forming or coming together or connecting. Sometimes they just need time to find the words, right? And as a leader, sometimes especially if our relationship is new with that employee, or maybe that employee doesn't know how much they can trust us yet, oftentimes the first thing they say is kind of a test balloon. They give you something simple or innocuous or something that's not particularly risky to see if you are listening, to see if you care enough to dig deeper. Because if they can get away with just sharing that, and oftentimes they can because you're happy to move on to the next thing, you never get to the conversation that actually matters. And so regardless of what the reason is, if we don't allow there to be some space, some silence in that conversation, the person on the other side of it may never get the opportunity to share with us the thing that actually matters, the thing that we actually need to be talking about. Allowing space or silence is what makes these really meaningful conversations possible. But it's not an easy thing, right? Especially if you're like me and you are prone to want to solve problems, or maybe you haven't conditioned yourself or practiced listening in the past. This can be challenging. One of the reasons it's challenging is that a majority of us are uncomfortable in silence, right? We don't like the silence any more than the other person. And so we have to fight our own instincts. Even when we are intentionally allowing space or allowing that silence, we need to check ourselves so that we can stay in that space. We can hold that space and that silence instead of jumping in to fill the space, which is what we're going to want to do. The second thing that makes this challenging is that as a manager of people, chances are, if you are a manager, you got promoted to manager because you are a good problem solver. A lot of times that's how we get promoted to leadership in organizations is our capacity to solve problems. We are solutions people. And so we go very quickly into problem solving mode. When someone is sharing something with us that they're struggling with, I don't know about you, but I start thinking about solutions. Like I'm moving on to action immediately. And if we're not careful in checking that instinct, we can jump in and offer solutions or start suggesting action before the person has even finished sharing their thought. Right? This is a trap that we fall into over and over again. And when we do this, first off, we're assuming that they want us to solve their problem, which they may not. We're assuming that we understand the problem, which we probably don't. And we're assuming that we need to share a solution as quickly as possible, which is almost never true. This is a listening fail on every level when we do this. And so when we do it, the primary thing we're signaling to the person on the other side of that conversation is that we're not really interested in listening to what they're saying, trying to really understand or hold space for them. And so we have to be very conscious of these instincts or habits we have if we are to create space in our conversations, to practice spacious listening. So this is as much about interrupting our own habits and instincts as it is doing anything else. Here's how it works. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is something I wish I didn't have to say, but I think I have to remind us all of this, given the kind of high-paced world that we're in, is never interrupt someone. Never interrupt someone. There's no better way to signal to someone that you aren't really interested in what they're saying or that you're not really invested in listening to them than to jump in and interrupt them. Just don't do it. The second part of this practice will be more challenging at first, and this is to intentionally leave space when someone stops talking. And what I would challenge you to do is to try to recognize when someone, when you're in a conversation, when someone stops talking, when they finish a thought or a sentence, pause. And don't just pause. My challenge to you is to pause and count to 3 in your head. Take a 3 count. That's how much silence or space I would challenge you to leave. Now, when you pause like this, a few things happen. It allows your brain to catch up with sort of what information you're taking in. It allows your brain to kind of start processing, what did you hear? What did you see or notice about the person? It helps you also maybe notice your instincts, right? That you want to jump in or that you want to problem solve. It kind of allows your brain to catch up and engage before you say something next. It also helps you not say the thing that you're feeling is so urgent to say. So often the thing that we want to say in that moment is not necessarily helpful, right? It's going back to those assumptions that I just mentioned a moment ago. So put a pause in, count to 3, and allow them some space. Because when you do that, right, so this is putting yourself in check and allowing space. We're creating silence. As we established earlier, people don't like silence. So what they are going to be prone to do is fill that silence. And so they'll take whatever they just shared and then they'll start talking again, and they might then dig a little bit deeper, or maybe they'll be a little more brave, or maybe they have found the words that were escaping them a moment ago, and that's usually when the good stuff starts to come. And so allow space, and the more space you allow, the more the space itself, which seems counterintuitive, that space, that silence, is the sort of active step that mines that interaction for the really meaningful, meaty stuff that you're likely looking for, that at least I hope you are looking for if you are invested in really leading your people. So there's a lot of good stuff in every conversation. You just have to allow there to be enough space for it to emerge. So let's recap. Listening is perhaps your most important skill as a leader. Frankly, I think it's the most important skill you might develop as a human being. But it's a skill that has to be intentionally learned and practiced. You don't become a great listener by accident. You have to be working at it. And listening is the key to helping people feel supported and cared about at work. And those things are the foundation of employee engagement and performance. So if you want a high-performing team, one of the things you can do to have an incredible impact is work on becoming a better listener. And as we just went through, one of the key listening skills is the practice of spacious listening, which is allowing there to be some space, some silence in your conversation. To do that, I shared two steps with you. Number 1, never interrupt another person. And number 2, allow a pause when someone stops speaking before you speak. Pretty simple, not easy. Learning to practice spacious listening will unlock more conversations that matter for you, both at work and in your personal life. So I'd encourage you, give it a shot, practice, leave as much space as you are able to, and then let me know how it goes. I think you'll be blown away by what happens.